Okay, this is a video of a Japanese maritime self-defense force, augmented, I guess you could say, carrier strike group. And the Japanese, by putting F-35Bs on their Izumo carriers, this one is the Kaga, has enabled itself to create very powerful, actually, carrier strike groups. And I'll go into it as we go on here. Just so you can be aware, and as I put in the minutes or the definition or description of this video, it's not for sure at this point whether the Japanese will actually put that ski jump on there. That's the way they announced what they would do, and it makes some sense, of course, for them to do it. On the other hand, the United States, with its Wasp class and America class carriers, which are actually LHDs and LHAs, but which also are being the last two Wasp class and the first two America class are being set up to take full loads of F-35Bs, 20 to 24 of them, are not going to have a ski jump, and that will allow them, when taking off, to take off from several positions at once. So let's talk for a minute about some of the escorts for this large group. To begin with, you've got these AIP, very advanced diesel electric submarines, and that are set up to work underwater for a long time without having to come up to recharge their batteries. So their diesel engines can work when they're on top, and their long-lasting batteries can operate when they're underwater, and they can operate at a fairly high speed, which is classified. So they may well use these submarines, which are very stealthy, to help defend these carrier groups. They then have, as we look back here towards the back, right back there, you've got two of their Aegis destroyers. By the way, all of these are in 1/350th scale. And the first one in line there has a carrier hangar deck for its helicopter, which is very similar, though its deck house is taller, to the United States Flight 2A Burks. And then behind that, we have their original Congo class, which are very similar to the Flight 1 and 2 Burks. They've got 4 of each of those, so 8 Aegis class that are very using the same ages as the United States class destroyers. Then they have now built 6 of these type of destroyers. This one, number 120, is the latest that they have. You can see that it has a two-phased a phased array radar set with 2 different frequencies that allows it to not only work with Aegis, but to better segregate airborne targets that it finds. So it's a very advanced vessel. It carries 32 vertical launch missiles in that forward housing, and they will be packed with quad-packed ESSM Sea Sparrow missiles So 32 times 4 is 128. And they were built specifically to defend both these Izumo Class vessels as well as the Hiyuga-class vessels. Let's zoom in on the Hiyuga. The Hiyuga is a smaller and shorter vessel than the Izumo. So, and the Izumus carry the F-35s, as you can see, up to 28 aircraft, 2 to 4 of which will be Ospreys, and another at least 2 will be those helicopters you see. So they will have 22 to 24 F-35Bs, which are 5th generation stealth aircraft. And as you can see, we've got a number of 1/350th scale sailors on these ships on the Kaga. Also, in this particular mode, we have one of the Hiyuga class. It's the ISA, ISE, which will be dedicated to a very extensive anti-submarine warfare. And this one is decked out to do that with both helicopters and Ospreys. And they also usually will have either takanami, like that one has, which is very similar to these Akazuki class, which I'll show you in a minute, except they don't have as strong a radar. They still have the 32 VLS with ESSMs, and my guess is they would also have at least one of the Congo. In this case, they're going together so that the Kaga will have extremely good and very strong anti-submarine warfare protection. And so this ship here, which we already looked at, 120, is one of the newest vessels the Japanese have developed as a destroyer. Over on the other side, you see one of the Akazuki class. They have 4 of these, which are outfitted very much the same as this class. The only difference being this one has more advanced anti-submarine warfare capabilities. That one has more advanced anti-air capabilities. So you now have a carrier here with 2 Aegis, 4 really Aegis type vessels, the 2 forward of which on either side of the Kaga are the Japanese own Aegis version, but which can work in cooperative engagement with the US vessels. And so this type of a strike group with this many vessels, including the very strong submarine that they've built, I think they're closing in on 20 of those submarines, allow the Japanese to put together 2 very strong augmented carrier strike groups at any time they want. And that's important because, of course, they've done it, as they have announced, because of the Chinese development of carriers. It might be mentioned that the Koreans, with their Dokdo class, which are similar, a bit smaller than the Izumo class for the Japanese, have also announced that both of those carriers that they have will carry F-35Bs. And they have the Sejong the Great vessels, of which they will have 6, which are Aegis vessels, but with a total of 160 missiles. So even more missiles than the Ticonderoga class. And they are fully Aegis capable. Many people don't realize it, but the three most powerful navies in the world in terms of tonnage are the United States Navy, followed by the Chinese Navy, followed by what remains of the Russian Navy, which used to be much larger, but still has very strong amounts of ships that are available. And the fourth one is actually the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, the Japanese Navy. And I expect that the Japanese Navy, in time, will, if the Chinese continue to build their more aircraft carriers. They've got 2 built and a 3rd building. I think if they go any further than that, we might see the Japanese build 2 more. The Japanese are very serious about their defense capabilities. I'm showing you over here the Hiyuga-class destroyer and getting in closer to it. All of these vessels I have augmented with quite a few details, some of which I bought like from veteran models, some of them from Trumpeter, some of them from some of the 3D Shapeways vendors, particularly Dutch miniature models and Snafu and a couple of others. If you're looking for 1/350th scale models or details to models, I would suggest you look on there. They're not too expensive and they add a lot to the vessels. And that's something that I have been adding to my vessels as time has gone on. For example, you can tell right there that I've got the 50 caliber machine guns at the appropriate places along either side there, and on the front end, that is not the phalanx that was sent with this model. I put in a much higher detailed 3D version. Although I must say that quality ship models who sold me this 1/350th scale Kaga did an excellent job. I also replaced the 2 CRAM self-defense systems on that ship. Let me get back here and show you with there we go, with veteran models CRAMs. And you can tell I also detailed these inlets with actual 1/350th scale ships, boats, and also added the life buoys around the ship, as well as the life rafts that these ships hold with true 1/350th scale rafts. You can see more sailors along there, some of them sitting in their tugs and other there's some other guys and their other equipment here on deck, which also did not come with the model. You can see the U-shaped tugs that they've developed for the F-35B and F-35Cs. Also have developed, for grin's sake, I guess you could say, something I feel very important, the AEW version of the Osprey, because that particular aircraft has such greater capability in terms of range than the helicopter version, or even the British crow's nest helicopter version, which is on the Merlin type helicopters. And I would hope and expect that the Japanese would work with the United States and Bell helicopters to develop that version which was offered to the British, and that the US Wasp and America class, as well as the 2 Japanese and 2 Korean and potentially 2 Australian, and certainly the 2 Italian and the 1 Spanish vertical takeoff and landing carriers, which will be carrying the F-35B, that all of them would opt to get the Osprey version of the AEW because it has range in terms of radar to allow those aircraft, that are flying cap either directly over the carrier or along its threat axes to intercept bombers or attack aircraft before they are able to launch their missiles. It's much easier to shoot down one aircraft carrying 4 missiles than to have to shoot down all 4 missiles. And the only potential opportunity for that off of one of these vertical takeoff and landing carriers or short takeoff and landing carriers would be the V-22 in its AEW version that has been proposed by Bell. And I hope that that goes ahead and gets developed and gets placed on those ships. So here you have it in terms of the Japanese carrier strike group, including one of the Hiyugas to enhance very much their anti-submarine warfare capabilities. And seeing one of those guys, one of these type of groups in the Western Pacific working in conjunction with a U.S. Carrier group, particularly if it's a 2-vessel group like the U.S. could put out in the Western Pacific, would be a very good thing. I would think that with the possibility very soon of having 2 Korean, 2 Japanese, 2 Australians, certainly the 3 Indian carriers will be very capable, particularly if they buy the F-35Bs as well. And then 4 American vertical or short takeoff and landing carriers in conjunction with 4 American nuclear carriers are going to be able to overcome and overwhelm the Japanese carrier capability for many years to come. The Chinese capability for many years to come. Surely the Chinese can and may well continue to build a large number of carriers, but they can't hope to keep up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries building carriers to augment their own defenses so that they can stay very much ahead of the Chinese. By the way, these two destroyers that you see here, the newer version and the Akazuki, were both bought as not plastic 1/350th scale models. They are the heavier material, and then were produced by I think Tech something. If you'll look at my other Japanese videos, you will see one for that ship being built right there, number 120, as well as for the Akazuki class. And within my verbiage and then within the definition, it will tell you where, what vendor put those out. And I'll put it in the written definition of this ship as well. So thanks for taking the time to watch. This is Jeff Head again on the Jeff Head YouTube channel. And this is the model of, or the video of the 1/350th scale Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force carrier strike group, of which they could at any time produce 2 out to sea just like this, which with the F-35B and the other augmented additions that I've discussed would be very powerful adversaries, and also for us, the United States, very powerful allies. The Japanese fleet is very squared away. They work with us and exercise with us very often in the Pacific Ocean, and particularly in the Western Pacific. Thanks again for watching. Let your friends know about this channel, and have a great evening. Thanks.